There's not a mountain too tall. There's not a problem so small that Jesus can't resolve. In time he'll get involved. 'Cause our God, he cares about us. So wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. And he'll renew your strength. Oh, yeah. There's not a night too dark, a journey too long to embark. Jesus will see you through. In time he'll make you new. 'Cause our God, he cares about us. So wait on the Lord.
Wait on the Lord. Wait on the
He'll renew
your
your
strength.
strength.
Wait on the Lord.
On the Lord.
Wait on the Lord.
For your word says
Wait on the Lord.
that you renew our strength.
He'll renew
Our strength.
No matter what you're going through right now, you gotta believe. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. Sing it again. He's ordering.
I believe that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by you, Jesus. Guide away.
You gotta put your trust in Him.
You trust in Him. He will come through. 'Cause He's ordering things. Your steps. Guide away.
Don't you dare give up, and don't you dare give in. And gotta believe that you're ordering.
Oh God.
Gotta believe that you're ordering my steps.
My steps. Hey. So I'm gonna wait on you, Jesus. 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 And I'm not turning back now. Ha! I'm not turning back now. I'm not turning back now. I'm not turning back now. Hey. I'm gonna wait on you, Jesus. Wait on you, Jesus. I'm gonna 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 wait on you, Jesus. I'm not turning back now. I'm not turning back now. I'm not turning back now. I'm not turning back now.
The first book of Samuel, chapter 1, narrates the story of a barren woman named Hannah, who was taunted by her husband's second wife, Peninnah, for not being able to bear a child. Nevertheless, she would travel year after year with her husband to Shiloh, praying that God would grant her the one petition of her heart, to be able to bear a child. Hannah described herself as a woman full of sorrow and grief because she couldn't have the one thing that she wanted. But that never took away from the faith that she had placed in God, the one person who she knew could grant her that miracle. So she would travel to Shiloh and pray for God to grant her her one petition. In the New Testament, Paul uses two different words to describe patience. One of them is hupomenai, which means to remain under or to abide under. Abide under what? Under difficult circumstances. These difficult circumstances are what we cannot escape from. We cannot run away from them. They're things we have to go through. The second word that he uses is makruthemia. Makruthemia, it translates to long suffering and endurance. The difference between the two is that one has to do with faithfulness and the other has to do with our attitude throughout those difficult circumstances. Here in the story of Hannah, we can see how her faith may have been tested. We can see that during the process of her wait time, which wasn't a week, it wasn't 2 months, Scripture says it was year after year that she would wait and in prayer, waiting for God to open up that door, to answer that petition. And here today, it may not be for a child, but we are also going through a process that requires us to be in that waiting room, in that waiting area, waiting for God to open the next door, to answer a petition, to grant us something that we desire. To remain in that trust, to remain in having faith in God when we don't see things working in our favor, when we don't see God moving in our process. Instead, perhaps we see him silent. Perhaps we just see the difficult circumstances at which we have to endure until that moment comes, that precise moment in which God is going to grant the petition of our heart, into which God's going to open up that next door, give us the job, a child, the car, whatever it is. Maybe it's a mental healing, maybe it's a illness that you're suffering, whatever the case may be. The answer is wait in me. Hannah's story teaches us that our attitude in the midst of the wait has to be remaining in him. We have to abide in him. We have to trust that he has everything under control and that there is nothing impossible for him, that in the midst of the process, he knows what is best. And at his right time, he can answer our prayers. But in the meantime, his answer is to wait. So for many people, this waiting process is considered a moment of weakness where we are most vulnerable to make wrong decisions or to try to take control and do things. When we don't see things working in our way or we don't see God working in our favor, we want to put our own hands in the mix and try to take control of it all to make what we want happen. But Paul couldn't have said it any more clearly. Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he says, his power is made perfect in my weakness, in our weakness. This is where we get to see him. Hannah had engaged in this habitual routine, going year after year, praying for God to open her womb and give her a child. But what's so different about this one prayer from all the rest? Instead of sorrowful Hannah, grieving Hannah, now we see a Hannah who's more mature, who's ready. She didn't need to be asked to give her son into service. That came from her. We see a different Hannah in her vow than we do at the beginning of the story. This is character. This is maturity that has built because of her waiting process. Her waiting process wasn't easy being taunted. It wasn't easy being misunderstood. It wasn't easy wanting and longing for something so much that no one could understand. But Hannah knew and trusted in God who can make this possible. She wasn't the only one. There were other women who were barren, and God has given them a child. This wasn't something impossible for God. In fact, He's the only one who can make it happen. A vow is a promise, a commitment, and a bond. In our journey with Christ, our main promise, our main vow, our main desire is always to be more Christ-like, to grow in our relationship with Him, and to simply do His will. That doesn't mean that in the process of doing so, we're not going to be faced with difficult circumstances. We're not going to confront uncertainties of life, that we're not going to have wants or desires. It means that I'm going to worship in spite of it all. I'm going to trust in Him through it all and know that He has absolute and total control over everything, even when I don't see things working in my favor. And until God doesn't open the door, until God doesn't give the word, the signal, I am to sit put where I am and trust in Him that He will make a way where there is no way. That it is my job to just trust in Him, that my faith is placed in Him. More often than not, it is difficult to walk by faith. We must trust the Lord, that the Lord will guide our paths and provide in areas that are beyond our control. There may be times where our faith will be tested, where we may be aware of the need in our life, but the Lord doesn't provide an answer or solution to these problems immediately. In fact, we may have to even wait for an extended period of time. Nevertheless, our faith is nurtured. If it's not nurtured during these difficult seasons of our life, it may fade and even grow weak. These difficult circumstances, they build the character, the godly character. They help us to grow, to mature. These processes are necessary and needed for us. But this waiting season isn't going to be forever. But today I just want to let you know, to remind you, there is nothing that God cannot do. There's nothing that He can't provide for. And there's nothing that He doesn't already know. He is aware of your need. He has heard your silent prayers. And He's calling you to wait. He's telling you to wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. And trust that He has everything under control. God bless.